Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a more philosophical video for you, sharing yet another way in which I am #not a brilliant man. And that is specifically when I fail to be true to my own instincts. One thing I want to say ahead of time though, last time I did this, in my video on simplicity and complexity, I got, I always get hateful comments, but one of them was kind of hate insightful, I suppose. He basically said, well, you idiot, of course that's true. If you go out and you buy something more complicated, this is of your own doing, and you are not allowed to complain about it. What do you think you are? You're some kind of an idiot. Why are you talking? And you know what? The guy had a point. He was being a douche. That's true, but he had a point. Because at some level, those are things that I can do better on. And after a long time in the gear game, that's a lesson I've learned. And that's the reason I'm sharing these kinds of videos. Not because I really enjoy strangers think I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot, that is. Although that's pretty much the only real reason to have a YouTube channel with comments open. But more importantly, because I realize a lot of these things being deep in the gear game, and maybe some people who are just getting started haven't yet. So if I can share one of the ways in which I am an idiot, maybe it'll prevent somebody else from being an idiot in the same way down the road. So today's form of idiocy, like I said, is trusting your own instincts. Above all else, to thine own self be true. Thinking back about a lot of the mistakes I've made, the mistaken purchases. And I don't mean things that turned out to be bad or things that turned out to be not exactly what I needed for that situation. Those are other things, but these are things that I've purchased and then later on come to regret purchasing, or at the very least come to sell pretty quickly shortly after. One of the things that a lot of them have in common, not all of them certainly, but that a lot of them have in common, is that I kind of saw it coming when I was making the purchase. This is a silly thing to say. Maybe I'm the only person who feels this way, but I often find that I know a little bit better than I think I do. Maybe some of you have had this similar experience where you're about to make a purchase, or you're about to do something, you're about to make a decision, and you realize at some low level in the back of your mind, I think I might be making a mistake here. Maybe, and it could be very explicitly like that, like, wow, I think I'm screwing up, but hey, let's go for it. Or it could actually be something a little bit more, pernicious, so to speak. For instance, and I'll give you a bunch of examples here today. One of my the examples is actually the predecessor in my collection to this guy here. This is the Omega Seamaster 300, but the watch I had before it was the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. Absolutely an amazing watch, beautiful watch, so much to love about it, but it was so damn thick, and it was so damn heavy. It was a watch that was just ginormous on me, and I loved it, and I still kind of do. There were days where I wish I could throw that bad boy back on, but at the same time, I remember sitting in the store thinking to myself, God, this thing's really thick and heavy. Is that going to be okay? I'll probably get used to it. Maybe I'll get used to it. And then you hear the narrator off screen. He didn't get used to it. That kind of thing. Or with a pocket knife. I think this is going to be too big for me, but maybe it'll work out. Maybe it's something that I'll end up carrying. The Hinderer Full Track's a nice example of this. I kept that guy after review because, you know what? It's really cool, but maybe it's going to be too... No, I think it's cool enough that it's going to be... I'll carry it. It's going to be fine. It was too big. And then, of course, this guy recently, this wallet here. This is the K&H Leather Akita. It's a great wallet. And I'm not impugning, by the way, any of the products I'm talking about here. These are just matters of taste. But I remember thinking to myself, wow, you know what? I don't know that I'm going to like hard snaps on the outside of a wallet. Turns out I didn't like hard snaps on the outside of a wallet. That's okay. As a reviewer, these are things that I do anyways. And I'm more inclined to take a stupid action because, well, it's for the channel, right? But still, it's definitely a thing. And we've all had situations like this too, or maybe where one particular element of a pocket knife or a piece of gear is kind of overweighing everything else. Like, well, the action on this is kind of awful, but at the same time, the rest of it's really cool, so maybe that'll make it okay. And anytime I hear myself saying, maybe that'll make it okay, that's a scary thing to me. That means I'm about to make a mistake. And I've done this, like I said, over and over and over and over again. And there's always that little inkling that in retrospect, you're standing there at the counter. I bought my big, my most expensive set of hi-fi speakers. I remember sitting there at the counter thinking, wow, these sound really good, but are they really that much better than my current ones? Spoiler alert, they were, but not that much. And ultimately, if I could turn back time, so to speak, I think I would have stuck with this, the prior set. Well, anyways, this is something that I only learned after, spending more time with it, after doing it. It's not the end of the world. It wasn't a bad bath. It was a bath, but it wasn't that bad. But still. So very, very often, I found myself, even as I'm about to make the purchase, to pull the trigger, standing at the check stand, so to speak, opening up the PayPal app, realizing, you know what? There were some issues here, but I think I'm going to give it a shot. And very often, those are words that mean I'm going to have a bad time. One of the things that I encourage you to think, because sometimes it can be very specific, but, in my experience, I keep doing this over and over again on a couple of very specific issues. There were things that are kind of a deal breaker for me that for a long time I didn't realize were a deal breaker. Actually, the piece of gear that prompted this is this watch here exactly. It's the Greg Stevens Designs GSD 4M, I believe. This is an absolutely amazing watch. And in fact, I like it a lot. There is a lot to love about this watch. But it has one simple deficiency that's not necessarily about the watch itself, but reveals something more about me as a human, which is that I cannot do a watch that doesn't have a bracelet. For me, fundamentally, a good bracelet on a wristwatch that's just crucial. That's key. Without a good bracelet on a watch, I'm just not going to love it. And I felt this over and over again with the Breitling Aerospace, which had a bad bracelet from the factory. And so, right there, without that bracelet being there, that was one of the things that contributed to that watch eventually exiting the collection. And so on this guy, I like the watch a lot. I keep wearing it, but every time I go to wear it, it's just like, I don't know. I kind of wish this had a bracelet because that's just the way that I prefer to roll. And so I've done this a couple of times now, buying something that doesn't have a bracelet and then thinking to myself, well, maybe I'll be okay with a strap. Maybe I'll do a NATO strap, an MN strap, something like that. That's this guy here. And each time it's okay, but I end up just trying strap after strap. And so I just need to realize that if I buy a watch without a bracelet, it's not going to be a keeper for me, like flat out. And it has to be a good bracelet because a bad bracelet's just as bad as no bracelet. So there you go. In the pocket knife game, things that are too big is a very easy way for me to lose out. Look, as much as I love, there are a bunch of, like the Hinderer Full Tracks, great example, knife I absolutely freaking love, but never ended up carrying because it's too big. Or the Demco 8015. Again, amazing piece. So there were so few things I can say about it that are awful, but it was just too big for my life. That's not saying, again, that any of these things are wrong or bad. It's just that's my own self. And to my own self, I gotta freaking be true. If I'm looking at something and it's 4 inches, I don't care how amazing it is. It's probably not going to stick around for me. One other thing that's kind of come up over and over again at collector pieces. I've told the story of the Doppler Shabazz before. This is the small Shabazz, which I like a lot. It's an absolutely beautiful knife. And it's done in this special limited edition Doppler pattern, which is, to me, as an acoustics geek, oh yes, I'll take it. But nevertheless, it's an absolutely wonderful thing. But I went and I bought the big one, the large Shabazz, thinking, well, I'd never be able to get the Doppler pattern again, and I'll probably carry it sometimes. No. Didn't really get carried much. And so I ended up selling it, taking a little tiny bath, because luckily they hold their value well, but still, not super amazing. Or, I've done this over and over again. Oh, hey, I'll get another sprint of this thing, because, hey, it's beautiful, like the Rosewood Endura. Great knife, but I wasn't going to carry an Endura, so why am I collecting, guys? That's just not my scene. And, even in other pieces of gear, like I've realized that for me, a pack, like a backpack or a briefcase or something like that, it needs to be relatively lightweight. It doesn't have to be freaking featherweight, but at the same time, something that is super duper heavy isn't going to be super duper compelling for me. And so like the Saddleback Leather, their briefcases, they're absolutely beautiful. The backpack's okay, because there it's on 2 shoulders, but the briefcase itself was just too damn heavy, and so as a result, I never quite bonded, and it ended up not happening. Now, mind you, I've been ranting a little bit about a bunch of these things, and I'm sure you can identify some of your own personal deal breakers, things that no matter what lies you might tell yourself, no matter when in the heat of the moment you're looking at something like everything else is so amazing, but for me, those kinds of things are definitely a thing. And let me know, by the way, in the comments what your personal deal breakers are, the things that you've discovered over the years, just like, no matter how good everything else is, if this is the case, I'm out. But that can definitely be an issue. One thing to remember, though, is that there are always exceptions. And I try not to, part of the reason I take some of these baths as a reviewer is that I try not to let those feelings kind of run me entirely. The Shaman, Spyderco Shaman is a good example of one that I've changed my mind on. When the Shaman first came out, my main feeling was just like, wow, that's pretty big and kind of beefy. Why do I need something bigger and beefier than the PM2? I didn't even need the PM2 being that big and beefy. Anyways, I digress. So this was a knife that initially I kind of like, I'm not going to like this. And in fact, the first day I carried, But then it grew on me. Then I realized, holy crap, this is ergonomic. Holy crap, it's really good. It still cuts. There's so much to love about the freaking Shaman that my first impression of this might be a little too big. Actually, and let's be real here, it also ain't that big in the grand scheme of things. For a lot of people, this is like a mid-sized sort of knife. But that's a case where it definitely, where it changed. The Seiko Samurai is another example of this. Seiko bracelets are just awful. They make one good bracelet on one of the Grand Seiko divers, but aside from that, they're bad. The clasps on them are really terribly lazy, etc. And so when I, first picked this guy up, it was just like, oh, hey, I like this, but the bracelet's going to kill it for me. But then I was actually able to get an aftermarket clasp for it, and that's made this guy a valuable part of my team, so to speak. That just having that aftermarket clasp got rid of that one issue and made this guy something that I definitely want to carry, want to wear, etc. And there were definitely other times where a small annoyance can be overwhelmed by a torrent of goodness. Looking at the Shabazz thumb stud, pretty squarely there. That's a problem, but the rest of it's good enough that I think it's okay. But those exceptions exist, but it's really important, at least in my estimation, and it's something I'm working to grow in every day, to consider those problems, to consider the things that you're just lying to yourself about. If you say, oh yeah, that's going to be fine, I'm going to like it anyways. Above all else, to thine own self be true. And so as you're looking at something, as you're thinking about, maybe I should do this, and especially as it gets bigger ticket, items. If you're sitting there in the mechanical pencil aisle and you're looking at, a $2.50 mechanical pencil and doing the full cost-benefit analysis, you probably... Well, let's put it this way. I hope you're free for this evening, because you're going to need a lot of time to go through life. But anyways, I encourage you, as you're looking at bigger ticket items, to ask yourself, what's most likely to make me sell this? When I was looking at this guy at the USN show, I already knew that, this guy doesn't have a bracelet, so it probably isn't going to stick around. I tried to tell myself that it would, because it's so excellent in every other way, but that turned out not to be a thing. So as you're staring at something, what's most likely to make me sell this? What do I like least? In that heat of the moment where you are most in love and you are most ready to, that's when you need to ask yourself that question. And if you can answer it well, then that's spectacular. And if you can't answer it, if there's nothing you can find wrong with it, then by God, go for it. But at least in my experience, asking that question probably could have saved me a bunch of pain and a bunch of money at a bunch of points in my life. So anyways, there you go. That's how I'm an idiot, and hopefully you can avoid this idiocy in the future. Feel free to let me know down in the comments the kinds of exceptions that have come up, your personal deal breakers, and if you want to share a story, that's great. Or you can just call me an idiot and move on. That's fine too. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. Bye now.